Over the coming days, you will undoubtedly hear various content creators and keyboard warriors calling Apple's new AirPods Max typical overpriced Apple status symbols. And while I can certainly understand that sentiment, will it actually be true? As a certified audio engineer, a career radio broadcaster, and an amateur audiophile, I think I might have some thoughts and insight at least worth considering. So, my entire life is audio. It is literally how I feed my family. I spend 40 hours per week minimum in front of industry standard Mackie HR824 studio monitors, in addition to the pair that I have in my own home studio. When I can't be in front of production and recording studio monitors, my headphones of choice are the exceptional Sony WH-1000XM2s that cost me about $350 when they were new. That's $200 less than the AirPods Max, but still way more money than the average person would likely spend on headphones. Most people are shocked that I spent more than $50 on a pair of headphones. Then again, this is just because most people, through no fault of their own, are not audio professionals nor audio enthusiasts. To these people, of course, $550 for a pair of AirPods Max headphones is mind-blowing and a waste of money. For those people, no amount of convincing in the world could make them spend $550 on a pair of headphones when their $20 CVS Skull Candies or the headphones that came with their smartphone are more than good enough to hear their murder mystery podcasts and Cardi B Spotify lists. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not a dig. That's just mainstream, and mainstream consumption does not require $550 headphones. Now, if those are your particular listening habits, then yeah, $550 AirPods Maxes are ridiculously overpriced. Now, if those are your listening habits and you're loaded, then they are merely a status symbol, and there are certainly those types of consumers that will undoubtedly buy a pair of AirPods Max just to flaunt that they can buy a pair of AirPods Max to listen to their low bitrate Spotify garbage. And more power to them. They can spend their money however they want. Now, all of that out of the way, we can address the real question. For those of us that either acquire high-fidelity audio for our work or at least highly value it as audio enthusiasts, you know that the overpriced arguments can erode quickly when considering the world of professional and enthusiast audio. The question then becomes one of value, not just outright price. To put it very simply, if a pair of $550 AirPods Max can match or outperform a pair of $550 AKGs, Sennheisers, Sonys, or Shures, etc., then they are an exceptional value. Going even further, those of you who know that high-end headphones can easily surpass $1,000, even surpassing several $1,000s. So the question then becomes, will the AirPods Max outperform headphones costing hundreds, if not thousands of dollars more? Now let's dive into the specs, because in my opinion, they paint a similarly promising, yet suspicious picture. One quick thing to keep in mind though, remember that we will soon see a flood of AirPods Max reviews coming in the following days. Just keep in mind that reviewing how speakers or headphones sound is infinitely subjective. There are, give or take, about 7 billion people alive on Earth, and every single one of them has ears that hear differently. Even the two ears on your head have differing frequency responses between them. AirPods Max tout some amazing technology, but let's start with arguably the most critical stats: dynamic range, frequency response, and THD, or total harmonic distortion. If these three factors are not stellar, then specs like adaptive EQ and spatial audio aren't as important. My worry is that, in typical Apple fashion, critical, objective, technical details like measured frequency response, dynamic range, and total harmonic distortion are not predominantly mentioned in the tech specs page. Normally, it does not bode well when we have to dig for these very basic, telling data points. The only shred of these tremendously critical technical specs I could find as of recording come from Apple's own press release, which mentions less than 1% total harmonic distortion across the entire audible range. The entire audible range. The entire audible range is not the entire reproducible frequency range. Calling it audible range and not entire range is acutely deliberate editing of press copy. They knew what they were doing. Digging a little deeper, Apple outlines its testing method using a pink noise generator across the audible spectrum from 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. Feel free to pause here and read it for yourself. It's pretty boilerplate. I wouldn't blame you for thinking this focus on the standard 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz is a bit pedantic. Audiophiles and audio professionals wrote the book on pedantic. These facts and figures, though, are critically important in determining whether $550 is a great value or if it's $450 of Apple tax applied to $100 worth of glossy psychoacoustic hogwash. I have no doubt that features like adaptive EQ and active tracking spatial audio that mimics a multi-speaker cinema setup will be amazing. I also have no doubt that AirPods Max will be exceptionally comfortable and have battery life at or near the 20 hours claimed. But Apple is being deliberately tight-lipped about the actual frequency response the 40mm dual neodymium magnet drivers can reproduce. I said I wouldn't blame you for thinking I am being pedantic about frequency response and dynamic range, but both are critical in professional and enthusiast applications. Overtones beyond 20,000 kHz affect frequencies within the audible range. It is critical for these overtones to be reproduced in critical mixing scenarios. Similarly, dynamic range good enough for a compressed 16-bit Spotify stream is not good enough for critical listening and audio mixing. Extended dynamic range is critical for building an efficient mix where every millivolt counts and real estate on the soundstage is at a premium. If the bass player lets out a squeaker fart that bleeds into the hi-hat microphone, dynamic range will reveal it. The only glimmer of hope I have towards the frequency response and dynamic range being great is how Apple talks about the design of their audio drivers. 40mm drivers with less R&D than Apple's routinely reach below 20 Hz and well beyond 20,000 Hz. So it'd be a breathtaking failure if a trillion-dollar company's miracle drivers fall short of that benchmark. In all honesty, I'd say there's a better than 99.9% chance that these drivers can reproduce below 20 Hz and beyond 20,000, realistically speaking, if I'm being honest. Headphones costing a fraction of the price do so routinely. I feel the same way about the dynamic range we may see, or rather hear. Acoustic dynamic range is kind of like HDR in video. With all the Dolby Atmos hype, again, it would be a breathtaking, almost dizzying failure if a trillion-dollar company like Apple can't reproduce beyond 90 decibels of dynamic range in a miracle pair of $550 AirPods Max headphones. So for reference before I wrap this up, my Sony WH-1000XM2s from a few years ago use the same size 40mm drivers and have a frequency response from 4 Hz to 40,000 Hz and dynamic range of up to 103 decibels. But you'll notice something here. These numbers are only achievable through the analog wired connection. And there is the possible burn it with fire, turd in the punch bowl, sand in your butt crack, nuclear bomb of failure for professionals and audiophiles concerning the AirPods Max. As of recording, there is absolutely zero indication that the charging port supports analog input. If it doesn't, and the AirPods Max are wireless only, you'd be a fool with more money than sense to buy these for professional or audiophile applications. Now, yes, you can mix a song over high-fidelity Bluetooth with a few milliseconds of delay and kneecapped frequency response and dynamic range. Yes, they will sound phenomenal over Bluetooth 5 while you mow your lawn or sit on a train. But for professionals and audiophiles, analog input isn't a bonus. It's a critical requirement. We will see how these thoughts and concerns age. But seriously, if the AirPods Max lack analog audio input, the value proposition for professionals and audiophiles drops significantly. Those headphones I mentioned that can cost thousands of dollars have analog inputs. Many of them lack wireless functions altogether, focusing solely on the quality of the drivers, amplifiers, and build quality. If the AirPods Max don't support analog input, they can't even show up to the professional and audiophile headphones race. And if they're disqualified from that competition, $550 can't possibly be a good value. Will they sound good to most Apple consumers with more money than sense? Sure, absolutely. I have no doubt. I have no doubt that they'll be some of the best performing wireless headphones around and pair seamlessly within the Apple ecosystem. But if it turns out that analog input is completely unsupported, it's not even a decision. It's a hard pass for professionals and audio enthusiasts. I hope to jobs that it supports analog input. But as of right now, it's not looking good. So that leaves us with two conclusions we can derive. If it doesn't support analog input and you're looking for pro cans, I don't need to tell you what you already know. Skip AirPods Max entirely. But if AirPods Max do support analog input, we'll still have to wait for verified independent lab tests of critical frequency response and dynamic range. Either way, if you're a professional or an audiophile, do not flush $550 down the toilet pre-ordering until they make it out into the wild and we get all the facts. However, if you simply do not care about costs and must have the status symbol, none of this information matters against the superficial attraction. Knock yourselves out. It's your own money. I have no doubt that the poetry of Cardi B will sound amazing while you sit in back of the upgraded Uber. Thanks for watching. Please know that you are worthy of love and your own self-respect. Check out the Geek Therapy Radio podcast in your favorite podcast app. Just look for the red, white, and black color scheme, and take care.